In the 1990s, the streets didn't just belong to muscle cars anymore. Oh no. The asphalt got a new breed of heavyweight contenders. Trucks like the Ford Lightning, the GMC Cyclone, and the Chevy 454 SS. These weren't your grandpa's pickup trucks. These were muscle trucks, factory built street brawlers that had the guts of sports cars and the attitude of barroom bouncers. They rolled off the line with chest thumping V8s, turbocharged V6s, and more swagger than a leather jacket than at a Guns N' Roses concert. And they didn't just change the game under the hood, they carved out their own place in popular culture. From magazine covers to music videos, these trucks became legends of the blacktop, symbols of raw American bravado at a time when bigger, louder, and faster was the only rule that mattered. So buckle up, because today we're diving into the untamed, unapologetic world of 90s muscle trucks, right here on Gears, Grease, and Horsepower. Let's get to it. All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of Gears, Grease, and Horsepower. I'm Ty Ellis. I'm joined today, as always, by David Fernandez. David, what's in your opinion, what was the best muscle trucks from the 1990s?
My personal favorite was the Chevy 454 SS truck. It was my favorite. I do like the Lightning as well. That one was featured in Fast and Furious, the first one. That was pretty neat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And you?
Brian O'Connor driving that one.
Yeah.
I do like the Lightning, for sure. I like the fact that the 454 SS, was just it was a total sleeper truck unless you was behind it and seeing the red bow tie on the tailgate or the 454 SS on the side of the bed.
Yeah.
And it just looked like your regular pickup truck until you come up on it, and then by that time it was over with. It was too late then. All right, well, let's dive into these 90s muscle trucks. But before we can get to the 1990s, we have to rewind a little bit to the 60s and the 70s. Up until the 1970s, there were not many high performance trucks that made it to production. And if they did, performance parts were typically bolstered things like payload and towing capacity. The 1960 Chevy trucks were years ahead of any of the others in terms of durability and that they could haul loads faster. In fact, that was a big a selling point in the 60s was about the payload that their Chevy trucks could haul. But trucks at this point were never really built for just flat out speed.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted a powerful, fast truck at this time, you had to modify it yourself. And which, to be fair, a lot of people actually did this. And that's how we got monster trucks. The Bigfoot was the first monster truck. He used it as a promotional item for his Ford dealership, and he put big tires on it. And
Oh, yeah.
eventually bigger tires and a bigger lift kit, and then started running over cars. People modified these trucks to be more powerful and to be faster. Most trucks were used strictly for work back then. That there was no such thing as a lifestyle truck at this point. But that was all about to change. Because during the 60s, people started using trucks as daily drivers and not just work vehicles, and manufacturers began to perk up and take notice. And eventually they started releasing some really high-end trim levels of their most popular trucks in small numbers. They called these trucks trick trucks, and the manufacturers competed to have the coolest versions. There was the trick trucks like the Jeep Honcho, the Dude, the Dodge Warlock, the Bo James, and the Gentleman Jim. And
Why there were so many James and Jim models, I don't know. I guess maybe the CEO's name or someone high in the Jim and James were a pretty popular name back then in the 60s, the 70s. But many of these trucks, while they looked cool, that's all they were. They were just appearance packages. They had things like fancy graphics on the sides. They had bucket seats. Some of the one of the trucks had interiors upholstered by Levi jeans. Uh, they were just show without much go in terms of fast and speed. By the early 1970s, muscle cars, as we know, the Malaise era was being choked out by emission standards. Horsepower was being greatly reduced. Um, and this led to an era of horrible cars like the Mustang II and the Slant 6 Barracuda, just that looked good, but you put the pedal to the floor, yeah, nothing, just nothing. But leave it to Dodge to find a loophole because in the 70s, the law for emission standards was that cars were required to have catalytic converters. But trucks were exempt from that law as long as they were over 6,100 pounds in weight. So, for Dodge's 1978 model year, they took their half-ton D series platform and they dropped in a 360 cubic inch 5.9 liter LA V8 that was used in their police interceptors, and they put that in there. Upgrades included things like high flow heads, a 4-barrel carb, and most importantly, no Cadillac converters because it exceeded the 6,100 weight limit.
Nice.
And that result was the Little Red Express. I've seen one in Marion. That's the only place I've seen one. I haven't even seen one at many car shows. I don't know if you've seen many of the Little Red Expresses. There's not many of them around. I know that. So if you see one, it's a rare sight.
Yeah.
And if you see one, you're definitely going to know what you're looking at because it's going to be a truck with two huge vertical exhaust pipes like a semi. It had wood paneling, and of course, it has a big decal on the door that says Little Red Express on it. It looks like a Hot Wheel. It looks like a toy in real life, which is kind of ironic because Dodge had just previously, before they released the Little Red Express, had previously released a whole line of adult toy trucks, including what they would later have as the Dodge Warlock.
That's a cool name.
Cool name for a truck.
I drive a Warlock.
Yeah. What do you drive? I drive a Warlock. Now, at first glance, you might look at this truck and you might think 6,100 pounds. That's a big vehicle.
Yeah.
But despite its weight, the Little Red Express was surprisingly quick. It produced 225 horsepower, which was actually 5 more horsepower than the Pontiac Trans Am of that year produced. Car and Driver actually tested a bunch of performance cars, such as the Trans Am, the Porsche 924, and the Corvette in a 0 to 100 mile per hour test, and the Little Red Express beat every single one of them.
Wow.
To 100 miles an hour. In fact, the Little Red Express was actually the fastest production American vehicle to 100 miles per hour in 1978. Even though it has the aerodynamics of a brick going down the road, it's pretty quick. So towards the end of the 1980s, after engine technology had got significantly better, the big three, they started experimenting with fast trucks again. Carroll Shelby worked with Dodge to make the Shelby Dakota. This performance truck traded its regular 3.9 liter V6 that came factory out of the stock Dakota, and they put in a fuel injected 5.2 liter V8 when sported a blacked out grille, sweet graphics, and it had this this really cool like light rack in the back that made it look really fast. Um, so it was like it was actually Carroll Shelby's first, if I remember reading correctly, it was his uh first time working on a rear wheel drive vehicle since like the 1960s Mustangs. All the other vehicles he'd worked on were front wheel drive, like the GLH out of oh, I can't remember there was the Dodge I can't remember. It stopped right down the pump. Maybe I'll remember. It was like a little bitty compact car. But Carroll Shelby worked with it. It was a front wheel drive and it's called the GLH, which means goes like hell.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah. Oh, the Dodge Omni.
Oh, the Omni. Okay.
Yeah, he had a special trim level called the GLH on that. But he'd worked with a lot of the front wheel drive vehicles during the 1970s because, of course, during the 70s, everybody was trying to get more fuel efficient. So they were making smaller subcompact cars and stuff. So the Shelby Dakota was actually the first rear wheel drive since the 1960s that Carroll Shelby had worked with. But the Shelby Dakota, it wasn't really super fast compared to nowadays standards, but I mean, it produced 175 horsepower with 270 foot-pound of torque, but it was the highest performing production truck next to the Little Red Express at this time. And actually, Dodge teamed up with a company called the American Sunroof Company, and they made a convertible Dodge Dakota where the roof went down on the cab. You know, it was pretty basic. It would be awesome. It would be awesome.
You don't ever see that nowadays.
No,
I've never. Only time I've ever seen a convertible truck, if it's custom that somebody did, I've never seen one from the factory. So that's pretty cool.
I think probably the Chevrolet SSR.
Yeah.
Probably custom for our truck. But that was 2002? It came out in 2002 and ended in 2006, I think.
I actually saw
one
this morning. It was a bright yellow.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
We got a red one running around town here. I seen it yesterday. But yeah, so it's been almost 20 years since any truck company's done anything. Of course, it wasn't electric or anything like the SSR was. It was the Dodge Dakota convertible was basic. I mean, you had to get out, stop, get out, and put it down yourself. It was all manual. So there was another truck in the 1990s that a lot of people probably ain't familiar with, but it was from Lamborghini. Lamborghini actually had a contract with the American military before the Hummer became a thing to see if they could make some kind of military truck, and they called it the LM002. And they also made for a very short time in a limited run, they made a civilian version of it called the Cheetah.
The Cheetah, I like that.
Yeah, they were designing muscle trucks, and of course, they put the 5.2 liter V12 from the Countach.
That would be cool.
In this truck. Just the amazing innovation coming from Lamborghini is just it's just crazy at this time.
I've never seen a Cheetah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, they made originally came out with we're trying to make a military prototype, and they ended up making I've never seen one in real life. I've seen pictures of it, but it looks pretty cool. It looks very similar to the Hummer for sure.
Yeah.
Just a little more low slung.
Yeah, I used to watch that show, Daily Driven Exotics, and they actually took one out on that. It was pretty. They took it off road. It actually was pretty impressive. It was pretty cool. So, yeah. Well, I mean, at this time, let's talk about Ford. Ford had a hot truck in the works. It's called the Ranger SHO. This super high output Ranger was developed with a Roush Racing that had a 3-liter SHO iron block V6 putting out 200 horses and 200 foot-pounds of torque at 4,800 RPM. The boys that that Roush threw in an AT5 manual transmission. That'd be fun. Manual transmission.
Yeah, for sure.
Came straight from the Mustang, and keep in mind that the Ranger was still a small truck, and at this point, all the fun stuff that had packed into a mini truck would have been a collector's item by now. I mean, but sadly, the Ranger SHO never made it to production, although a few concept vehicles were sent out to be tested by car magazines, and that's about where it ended.
That would be so awesome to
Yeah, it would have.
have a Ranger show.
Yeah, we never got one. It'd been cool to see one though.
Yeah.
Putting a big engine in a relatively small package wasn't a new idea. GM engineers in the late 80s, however, were trying to figure out a way to make a truck version of one of the sickest sleeper cars, the Buick Grand National, which I love the Buick Grand National.
Oh, yes. They're awesome.
Yeah, they're rare to see, but when you see one, they have a presence to them. They're nice.
For sure.
The highest performance Grand National, dubbed the GNX. They made a song about it.
Yeah.
Had a turbocharged 3.8 liter V6 capable of an insane 360 foot-pounds of torque and 276 horsepower. A Grand National truck would have been pretty amazing, but the car was being phased out in 1987. And Buick wasn't really a badge that really made trucks, so they said no. Unfortunately,
Man.
that would have been cool.
Could you imagine? Just, I mean, Buick Grand National was beating Corvette
Right
at this time with a V6.
Yeah,
Could you imagine a truck version of them? That would just be awesome.
I think the Grand Nationals are pretty rare, but the GNX that's super rare. Those are.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how many they made of them. They were pretty low numbers.
Yeah, I know.
But eventually, it was GMC who agreed that they could use a Halo truck, but opted to go with a cheaper engine than the Turbo 6. The result was the Cyclone, which everybody liked the Cyclone. That was pretty popular in school when I went to school in the 90s, and everybody liked the Cyclone. So,
yeah, for sure. They're awesome.
Yeah, we had cool cars in the 90s for high school. Cars and trucks. Built on the S10 compact truck platform shared with the GMC's Sonoma, this 3,600 pound 4-wheel drive sport truck had a 4.3 liter turbocharged Vortec V6 under the hood, making 280 horsepower and 350 foot-pounds of torque. It could be modified to handle 20 plus pounds of boost. That's a lot of boost.
Yeah.
For a little 4.3 liter.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
The Cyclone looks pretty sporty and low for a truck, distancing itself from other trucks that touted their off-road capabilities. But the Cyclone wasn't for going off-road. It didn't even like doing work, really. At the track.
Right.
With the short bed and a payload of only 5,000 pounds, it could have been able to do much. It couldn't have been able to do much work if it tried. GMC even said that towing was not recommended. But what the Cyclone lacked in payload, it made up for in flat-out speed. Car driver tested in 1991 against a Ferrari 348, and the Cyclone smoked the Italian stallion to 60 miles an hour. That's pretty impressive.
That's crazy for a V6, even turbocharged, man.
I mean, can you imagine sitting there at the line, like seeing a little truck and a Ferrari 348 pulling up there, and like most people would guess the Ferrari is, oh man, that's $200-something thousand car. It's gonna.
Oh heck yeah.
I don't know how much they were at the time, but yeah, I mean, that's crazy to get waxed by a little bitty truck.
Right.
The Cyclone posted a 5.3 second 0 to 60, which is insanely fast for a truck, even by today's standards. My Audi won't even do that. um, it was insanely fast for a truck for today's standards. But after 60 miles an hour, the aerodynamics of the truck, of the square truck, proved detrimental, and the Ferrari ended up beating the Cyclone in the quarter mile, unfortunately. But the first part was probably pretty awesome to watch.
Oh yeah.
But
Watch that Ferrari get smoked.
yeah. But honestly, the unthinkable had already been achieved. They even made 10 Cyclones in collaboration with, you guessed it, the American Sunroof company, that had a convertible top and a Marlboro cigarettes graphic scheme. That's cool. These trucks are the holy grail for the Cyclone fans. You got to love the early 90s. Marlboro branding even had cigarettes are responsible for millions of deaths per year.
Yeah, the 1990s. Nobody even cared. Nobody cared. They're like, hey, yeah, okay, we'll team up with you.
But it's a pretty popular livery for people throwing cars. So
sure.
Despite doing the modest of both the Cyclone and the Typhoon, just short of a 5,000 total, the article the car and driver came out with brought this muscle truck into the mainstream and made everyone realize how cool the idea of a fast street truck is, and the idea of caught on over it.
Cyclone and the Typhoon, man, they were total sleepers.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean,
little trucks with lots of power.
For sure. Yeah, and you'd never know it. I mean the paint scheme, I guess, might give it away if you're an enthusiast or whatnot. But I mean, other than that, it just looks like a mini truck.
The Cyclones, I can't remember. Maybe didn't they put some kind of sort of badging that said that there were a Cyclone on those? Or maybe it was a Typhoon. I don't remember on that.
I think they did. Obviously, they had probably on the door, had Cyclone and Typhoon on the SUV. And I'm sure they probably had some kind of graphics because, I'm sure GMC would have wanted everybody to know that it was different than the Sonoma or the S10. So, I haven't seen a picture of a Cyclone in a long time, but like I said, unless you were like someone that knew what you was looking at, or even just like when they pull up, you're like, okay, something's different about this truck, but you would never expect, that kind of power and that kind of speed,
right,
from that small truck. So let's talk a little bit about the 454 SS.
Yeah.
Chevrolet engineers took the new gen C1500 truck, internally known as the GMT 400, and they stuffed one of their biggest engines in it, the 454 cubic inch 7.4 liter V8. Later versions of the 454 SS made 255 horsepower and a massive 405 foot-pounds of torque in a relatively small package. 225 horsepower, 405 foot-pounds of torque doesn't sound big today, but I mean, we're talking the 90s. This was like massive horsepower at the time.
Oh yeah.
See, and you got to remember that trucks are massive compared to trucks back then. I seen a comparison about the 1990 square body. Well, they're not square body, but the OBS Chevy Silverados to compare to the Chevy Silverados today and how much bigger.
Oh yeah.
A Silverado back in 1995 would be like the same size as the Colorado today. Even the F-150s back then were like the size of the Ranger is today in 2025. So the trucks nowadays are massive compared to back then. And so the power of a 454 in a what we would call a mid-sized truck today would kick in about 1600 RPM, which really helped the truck to achieve a 0 to 60 miles per hour time of 7.7 seconds, which was on par with the Mustang GT of that era. That's crazy.
That is crazy.
The 454 SS, unlike the Cyclone, looked like any other truck on the road at the time. And the only defining features were the blacked out grille,
Yep.
the red bow tie on the grille, and the 454 SS logo on the back. So, as we talked about earlier, it was pretty much a sleeper at that time. And you would never really know that this was a muscle truck with this huge 454 cubic inch engine in it until you came up on it, and especially if you're a casual fan, you wouldn't realize, hey, this is what I'm looking at.
Right.
So Ford saw all this playing out at GM. They saw the GMC Cyclone, the Typhoon. They seen the 454 SS, and they realized that a halo truck of their own could bring attention to the rest of their truck line. After all, the Ford F-150 was the most sold truck. I think it may still be. I can't remember, or if it's a Toyota Camry. F-150 in the 90s was the sold the most amount of vehicles in the United States of any other vehicle at the time. And if I remember correctly, I think Toyota's beat them out here recently. But
Toyota
so
makes for pretty reliable trucks.
They do.
Yeah.
They really do. And since they had this huge market share to protect, they thought, hey, let's make a truck to bring attention to our truck line.
Yeah.
So they looked to the high performance division of the Ford SVO, or the Special Vehicle Operations. They took the reins on this new project, and in 1993, Ford's Special Vehicle Operations debuted the first generation Ford SVT Lightning. So the Blue Oval's biggest competition with this new truck was of course, the 454 SS, mainly because the Cyclone was virtually unbeatable, and it didn't make much sense from a business perspective for them to produce something that could compete with the Cyclone. So they put a target on the 454 SS. It would cost a ton of money to develop a truck that would compete with the Cyclone. And of course, they didn't plan on selling very many of the performance trucks. And they needed a truck that could compete with the 454, because that was a much more attainable goal. They took a full-size 9th gen F-150, put extensive suspension and handling upgrades on it, and dropped a 5.8 liter V8 under the hood. Engineers upgraded the stock headers to cast iron cylinder heads from the GT40 of all cars.
Oh, that's cool.
They installed high flow ports and tuned the engine to make 240 horses with 240 foot-pounds of torque. The Lightning was 2.5 inches lower than a stock F-150 and had formerly GP shocks up front and both front and rear anti-roll bars for better handling. Unlike the Cyclone, though, the SVT Lightning maintained almost all of its payload capabilities of the F-150, and it had a tow limit of 5,000 pounds. It was still a truck that you could drive like a Mustang, although it was close to 3 seconds slower to 60 miles per hour than the Cyclone. The suspension upgrades helped the Lightning to handle better than both the Cyclone and the 454 SS. The first gen Lightning would go on to sell almost 12,000 units more than the Cyclone, but 5,000 less than the 454 SS. Following the debut of the Lightning in 1993, the high-performance muscle truck market was solidified as a legitimate niche scene. I know this was in the 90s, the 1993, but then, of course, you had the one you referenced, the 2000, Ford Lightning that they came out with the step side. Man, I tell you what, both of those are just beautiful trucks. I
Oh
love them.
yeah, it's always cool when Chevy and Ford have a rival against each other. They always put out something cool. You got the
Oh man,
Mustang, then the Camaro came, the the 454 SS truck, then the White Lightning came, and then like now today you got the C8 ZR1X breaking records, and now Ford posted game on with their GTD getting beat. Who knows what they're going to come out with next? So it's always cool. It's always cool to see the rivalry going on.
yeah, it definitely brings out the best in them. I mean, it's like they just where they're normally cautious, they're like, oh yeah, we got to beat them. And
Yeah,
they just throw caution to the wind and just
yeah.
crazy stuff into it.
We always get some cool cars out of it. Cool rides. But there was one company that was noticeably silent during the first few years these trucks were popping up. That's because they were in the basement mixing up some medicine for a couple of years. From 1998 on, Dodge offered a high-performance version of their Dakota with a 360 cubic inch Magnum V8 under the hood that also bolstered handling by dropping it an inch from stock Dakota height. It had a quick ratio steering box and heavy-duty front and rear sway bars. The Dakota RT could do a 7-second 0 to 60 on street tires, but many RT owners put slicks on it and hit the drag strip around the same time. That would be cool to see. So Dodge had a concept truck called the Sidewinder. It was a hot rod looking truck with an 8-liter V10 from the Viper GTSR, making 600 incredibly impressive horsepower. Supposedly, the truck could get to 170 miles an hour, but it never went into production. Sadly,
That's crazy.
I'd be kind of scared to go 170 miles an hour.
Yeah, yeah. I had a poster of the Sidewinder on my wall when I was a teenager, and man, I love the roadster style truck. But yes, 170 miles an hour in
Oh, yeah.
truck would be super scary.
Yeah.
So all these high performance trucks that we've talked about today, they have paved the way for all the super amazing trucks that we got in the 2000s and 2010s, like the second gen Lightning that we talked about. It was one of my favorites. The Dodge SRT 10. I'd love to have a Dodge SRT 10. They had the Dodge Viper engine in them. And man, oh my gosh, they're amazing. And of course, you had the Jeep Cherokee Trackhawk that they had out, and the Silverado SS Intimidator. All these 1990s muscle trucks.
The Trackhawks are cool.
Phenomenal. I'd love one. I would not turn one down if someone said, "Hey, would you like this?"
Yeah, they have one in Texas at Tex 2K. They call it the Gap Hawk, and that thing was destroying cars.
Gap Hawk.
That was pretty cool.
That's pretty good.
Gap Hawk. It was no longer the Track Hawk. It was the Gap Hawk. Yeah, it had the extra sauce. It was a beast.
Is it turbocharged, supercharged? What is it? Or is it just a straight naturally aspirated?
I believe it was supercharged.
Supercharged? Yeah, they
like most of the Dodge vehicles you see nowadays are they're high performance ones.
Yeah. That's crazy. So from the drag strips to the streets, from rap videos to late night car meets, the muscle trucks of the 1990s left a mark far bigger than the rubber they burned. They weren't just pickup trucks. They were a statement. They told the world that utility could be mean, raw, and unapologetically fast. They influenced the way we see trucks today, blending muscle car DNA with everyday grit And in the process, they became pop culture icons. So the next time you see a Ford Raptor or a Ram TRX or a Chevy Silverado Yanko tearing it up, remember it all traces back to the legends of the 1990s. This wasn't just about horsepower. This was Platoon on four wheels. And the legacy is still thundering down the highway today. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Gears, Grease, and Horsepower. If you enjoyed today's episode, hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, and share it with your friends. Your support helps us grow and reach more listeners just like you. And of course, stay tuned in for more exciting content because we've always got more content headed your way. Feel free to drop us a comment, drop us a message. Let us know what you like. Let us know what you dislike about the episode. We'll work on it. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, we'll catch you in the next episode.